going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Kev and Stevie P coming at you today. What's going on, Stevie P?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? What's up, Kev?
All right, so today's podcast is basically going to be our DFS podcast for the week. But first, before we get into that, we're going to get into the Antonio Brown saga continues. I do not even want to talk about it anymore, but today he was released. Yesterday, as of yesterday, he was playing and everything was good. And then Mike Mayock fined him $215,000, voided his guaranteed money. He asked for his release, and I would say about 2-3 hours later, that release was granted. So Antonio Brown is currently a free agent, not owed any money at all from the Raiders. So he's just out there. Steve, what would you give people for advice on Antonio Brown?
Obviously, if you got him, I mean, you're going to keep Antonio Brown. You're not going to drop the guy. You know what I mean? I would hope you're not planning on dropping him at this point. I would give it, a little while to see what teams are thinking about doing with him and then, go from there. But it's one of those things where it sucks for your fantasy team, but you're going to have to just dig in and bear it for now.
Yeah, I mean, I have Antonio Brown in my biggest money league. I had the first pick, and when I came back in the wraparound, he was there, so I took him. And I kind of regret it now, but I have no choice. I'm going to hold on to him because you're either selling really low on him or you're waiting around. You can't drop him. I mean, he's too good of a talent, and he's more than likely going to get picked up somewhere. So you definitely have to hold on to him. If you have him, it sucks that you're going to have to deal with it for the first few weeks and see what happens, but who knows? It's more so just the guy's a straight lunatic. I mean, he just seems like he's completely lost his brain. He just threw away $30 million.
He literally did. And the funny part is all he literally had to do was make it to week 1. And if he makes it to week 1, he's basically set. That money is guaranteed, and he couldn't even make it to week 1. So there's not much more I can really say about it. It's just a bad deal.
Drew Rosenhaus has to be looking at this dude like, what are you doing to me? Like, I get 10% of that, right?
For real. Drew is like, I don't even know if I want to be this guy's agent anymore. He's crazy.
Drew might drop him as a client.
Drew's
all about getting the money, and this dude just threw out $30 million, and he's probably going to get $5 million on a 1-year deal.
Bro, there's no question in my mind that I would drop him if I was Drew. I'd be like, listen, don't get me wrong. I think, money is money, but if I'm Drew, Drew worked so hard to get him out of Pittsburgh and get him some guaranteed money somewhere, and this dude just basically was like, threw it right back in his face, like, I don't give a damn about that. I don't care. That's to me, that's just ultimate slap in the face to Drew Rosenhaus. And if I was Drew, I would have some kind of pride and just be like, nah, I'm not. I can't do it, dog. You got to go do your own thing. You find somebody else. I'm not going to try to spin deals together to get you the best deal I can possibly get you, and then you just throw it in my face by being an idiot.
Yeah. So basically, the advice is hold on to him if you have him. If you don't have him, I would try to maybe buy low on him. Right now you can probably get him for cheap because owners probably don't want to deal with this mess anymore. I mean, I tell you, from an owner myself, I was tired of dealing with it after 1 week. He went from not playing, being suspended, to then playing and not playing. And now he's released. I mean, it's just a headache to deal with. So, yeah, I mean, our advice is if you have him, hold on to him. But if you don't have him, I wouldn't be against buying low on him because if he winds up catching on with a team like a few of the teams I heard were Seattle, like that, I feel like that would be a really good spot for him. Seattle, of course, New England's always going to come up in these cases. I heard the other day that he wanted to play for the Texans. I don't know where that came from, but somebody said that him. Everything he was doing fueled speculation that he wanted to play on the Texans. So I don't know where that came from or how that would happen, but just wait and see where he winds up.
Yeah, definitely. If the sound quality of this podcast sounds different, guys, I am down the shore, so it might sound a little bit different. I can see the spikes in the audio quality, so it might be sound a little bit louder. But that's just because I am down the shore doing this, trying to get you guys this DFF info.
Yep. So let's get into that.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So what we'll do first is we're going to each throw out we'll go start off with DraftKings. We'll just throw out our DraftKings lineup and just talk about that a little bit.
All right, real quick, Kev. For all of you that listen to the podcast and like listening to the podcast and all that, we are going to do this, DFS every week. I want you guys to know that DFS, if you haven't tried it, is a lot of fun. Like, you guys will have a lot of fun playing this. I highly recommend doing DFS if you don't. And these podcasts here are basically guidelines that are going to help you with, guys that we really like on the week. I think me and Kev, if you guys listen to us, you can tell we're very knowledgeable. So you guys know that we know what we're talking about. So, try out some of these 50-50 lineups, and I really think that you will really begin to enjoy DFS if you don't already play. So like Kev said, we are going to get into those lineups. I'll go first, Kev. Right. We're going to do FanDuel first, right, Kev?
FanDuel first?
Yeah, it's up to you. We can do either one. I just have FanDuel up on my screen here.
No problem. Go ahead.
All right, so my FanDuel lineup, I have one on the website that you guys can go check out, but I'm going to give you a different one than I have on the website. And the one I have here is I got Andy Dalton as my starting quarterback. I have Chris Carson. I have Dalvin Cook, Marvin Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., Tyler Boyd, George Kittle, Kerryon Johnson, and the 49ers defense. So basically, my strategy in DFS is either go high-priced quarterback or low-priced quarterback. And normally when I go high price, it's because I think they're going to smash. Like if you had Patrick Mahomes going up against the Arizona Cardinals, you know what I mean? This week, it would be a smash spot that I think you need to get them in your lineup. So, you know what I mean? These are 50-50 lineups, so you kind of want to have quarterbacks that you think can smash, but for the lowest price so that you can get your studs in. So, Andy Dalton going up against the Seahawks. The Seahawks have one of the worst secondaries in football, after all the losses that they've had, Earl Thomas, and just a barrage of losses that they've had over the years. And what I saw in the preseason is a shell of what they used to have. So I think Andy Dalton could have a good game here. If he does have a good game, Tyler Boyd is going to eat. I like Tyler Boyd's matchup this week. I told you guys that yesterday. If you go check out the website, you can see that. You can see the cornerback wide receiver matchups. Tyler Boyd has a very good matchup this week. So I like that combination there. Chris Carson is in a smash spot against Cincinnati. Cincinnati was one of the worst run defenses in fantasy football last year. And they didn't really improve. So, I could see Chris Carson at home smashing this week. Dalvin Cook is a guy that I talked about a lot yesterday on the podcast, saying that, he's probably going to catch a bunch of balls, going to be utilized because the Falcons give up a lot of receptions to running backs because they're a bend don't break offense or defense, and they don't really feel the need to, cover the, running back under Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn last year, he had, I want to say there was 4 different games where he gave up double-digit receptions to running backs. The most notable one was, I believe, week 2 against the Saints. Alvin Kamara had 15 receptions in that game, which is just insane. So, I love Dalvin Cook. Marvin Jones is just in a smash spot against Arizona. Arizona is starting basically 2 scrap heap cornerbacks this week. So if you can get Kenny Galladay in your lineup, I like that too. But Marvin Jones is the cheaper option there, and I like him a lot this week. Odell Beckham to me is in the biggest smash spot of the week, going up against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans gave up the most points to fantasy number 1 wide receivers last year, and Odell Beckham I think is going to splash in that game. Then you got George Kittle going up against Tampa Bay. Going up against Tampa Bay. I like that matchup a lot. Kerryon Johnson going up against Arizona. Their defense can't stop anyone. running the ball in the preseason, and I just don't think that they are going to be, they were bad last year, and I just think they're going to continue that trend. That defense is not going to be very good. Kyler's going to have to put up some points. And the 49er defense, just because I think they're going to get some sacks in this game, and for, if I go cheap on defense, I like to go defenses that I know are going to get a lot of sacks and possible turnovers. We all know that Jameis Winston is a turnover monster, and I could see the 49ers getting 4 or 5 sacks in this game. So just a safe floor for this defense, at 3,700.
All right, so my FanDuel lineup, a couple similar pieces. So I have Matthew Stafford at quarterback, Tevin Coleman and Mark Ingram at running back, Adam Thielen, Odell Beckham, Keenan Allen at receiver. I have Evan Ingram at my tight end. I have Marvin Jones in my flex, and I have the Eagles defense. Matthew Stafford. I mean, you just kind of hinted on the Lions. The matchup for the Lions this week against that Cardinal defense is just great. Um, the as far as running backs go, Mark Ingram he's another one with a great matchup against Miami. Miami's run defense was not very good last year, and this going into this year they're in full tank mode. So whoever's playing the Dolphins on a week in week out basis is probably going to be a pretty good matchup. Tevin Coleman. I'm riding with Tevin Coleman. We talked about this a couple days ago on the podcast in the ranks. I have Tevin Coleman ranked high as a number 2 running back, despite the reports about Matt Breida. So, these are 2 lower priced running backs that I think are going to have very successful days, which opened it up for me to have Odell Beckham, Adam Thielen, and Keenan Allen in my wide receiver spot. Thielen, especially with Diggs, being hampered by a possible hamstring injury. I think Thielen's going to eat in that game. He's going to see most of the passing work. Odell, Steve just talked about it, is going to be, it's an outstanding matchup against Tennessee. They don't do well against number 1 cornerbacks. Keenan Allen is a target machine in that offense, and with no Melvin Gordon running the ball, I think that they're going to be have a heavy passing attack. Evan Ingram at my tight end. You heard him talk about this the other day. Evan Ingram is going to be, a huge part of this offense for this season. So I really like Evan Ingram. I have him as my number 4 tight end for the year. And in this matchup, it's pretty good against Dallas as well. Marvin Jones is my flex. He's a lower priced. He's the lowest priced of the 2 receivers for Detroit, and that's why I like him, because I think both of those guys could wind up with a touchdown in this game. And the Eagles defense going up against Washington with Case Keenum. Eagles defense at home. Last time Keenum played in Philly, it was not very good. They got smashed in the NFC Championship game. So I like the Eagles defense against Washington.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about FanDuel, guys, if you are planning on, if you're a first time this is not for the experienced player. This is more for the guys that are just starting out. But if you are going to do FanDuel, the touchdown is king in FanDuel. It is half point per reception on FanDuel, so you want to make sure you recognize that, and you look for upside guys that are going to catch the ball a lot, obviously, but have touchdown upside. So keep that in mind when you're picking players on FanDuel, that you want to keep guys that are, you want to pick guys that are have a possibility to score against weaker defenses, because like I said, touchdowns are king. Yep. So let's go to DraftKings. All right, so my DraftKings lineup this week that I'm going to go with, I'm not going to go with the one on the site, guys, because you guys can see that. All of our, all of our premium members, VIP members are able to see that. So, sign up is basically how we'll say it. So I will go over a different lineup. My second lineup is going to be Carson Wentz on going up against Washington. I have Tevin Coleman, Austin Eckler, Tyler Boyd, Deshaun Jackson, Tyler Lockett, Zach Ertz, Saquon Barkley, and the Dolphins defense. So, like I said, I like to go, If I'm going to go expensive at quarterback, where I try to make up for that is I'll try to go for a really cheap defense. That way they kind of counterbalance themselves, and the Dolphins are the cheapest defense. It's very rare that a defense gets you zero, so I don't expect the Dolphins to do much. But if they get a sack or two in the game, with Jackson going back there, maybe he holds on to the ball a little bit too long. They are at home, so if you're going to go for a cheaper defense, make sure that you're going for a home defense. That's something that I will tell you guys. So I know you guys are probably thinking, oh man, the Dolphins defense, what is he doing? In DFS, guess what? That defense, the difference between $900, spending $3,000 on your defense in DraftKings and spending $2,100 is huge. You can get a really good player in your slot for that. So I was able to get Saquon Barkley in my flex at 9K, which I like this week. I think Saquon is just super safe. The dude averaged 25.4 fantasy points in DraftKings last year. DraftKings, the different scoring is full point PPR. They have a bunch of different bonuses for 100-yard games and different things like that. So, Saquon to me is just super safe. One of the safest running backs to get. And if you're going to go for a premium running back, why not go for the best in the league? Carson Wentz going up against Washington. This game is a 10-point spread, at in Vegas right now. It was at 9 point during all week, and it just got up to 10. So that's beautiful. I think Carson Wentz could have a really big game. The reason I picked Deshaun Jackson and Zach Ertz is because Deshaun Jackson has a known track record of just smashing against old teams that he goes up against. He's done it against the Eagles. He did it against Washington. He's done it against, basically every team he's ever played against that he played for. He just smashes. This is a guy that I like to get in, some of my FanDuel lineups and DraftKings lineups because I just think, if he does go off, he's only 4,500, which is almost minimum price. Was basically minimum price for a wide receiver, and I love that. So, getting a cheap option that can score me, 30 points is going to be something that I think he can do tomorrow, and I think he's in a smash spot against his old team. Tyler Lockett is another one I think is going to catch a ton of balls tomorrow. I think, Russell Wilson is just going to target the hell out of him. And, for 6K, I love that matchup against Cincinnati at home. Tevin Coleman, another guy that I think is going to catch a bunch of balls tomorrow. Be used in the running game, could possibly score a touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised if he had, 5 or 6 catches in this game, which are king over on DraftKings. And Austin Eckler, the same thing. I put Austin Eckler in my lineup because I think he's in a smash spot to catch 5 or 6, 7 balls and, carry the ball about 10, 15 times. So guys that are going to get high volume on DraftKings is what you want. And I think both those guys have it. Tyler Boyd, same thing against Seattle. I have him in both of my FanDuel, and I basically have him in every lineup. I think Tyler Boyd is going to be heavily, heavily targeted tomorrow. And, that is a big deal on DraftKings. So, that is my DraftKings lineup.
Once again, I'll say very similar. I actually, a quarterback, have Lamar Jackson. I'm taking a chance on Lamar this week. I think against that defense with the ability to rush and, maybe get a little bit of a passing yards out there. I'm taking a chance on Lamar. Leonard Fournette as my running back 1, Kerryon Johnson as my running back 2. Tyler Boyd, Kenny Golladay, Tyler Lockett. So we have very similar receivers in there. Zach Ertz is my tight end. You've heard me talk about Ertz. D.D. Westbrook is my flex, and the Buffalo Bills D is my D. Lamar Jackson, like I said, this is a good week for him to, open up and really show what he improved on in the offseason. Everybody knows he needed to improve, and everybody knows he needed to improve on his passing work, but the rushing is still going to be there. And, this guy's floor is almost 15, 20 fantasy points especially if his passing work, improves. Leonard Fournette, I think Jacksonville is going to have to run the ball a little bit to, stay in this game. So I could see Fournette going up against a Kansas City defense that wasn't very good last year, starting off and having a pretty good game. I also could see a lot of check down work to him. That's also why I have D.D. Westbrook in my lineup, because I think that this offense is going to have to do a lot to keep up with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs defense is just not very good. On Johnson, Steve talked about this, in his FanDuel lineup. The Arizona defense is just terrible. They didn't show any. Josh Jacobs ran through them in that preseason game that we saw a couple, few weeks back, and I think On could do the same. Tyler Boyd, I agree. I think he's going to be a target machine. Kenny Galladay. I mean, Kenny Galladay, there's games last year where this guy had like 17 targets. Like Matthew Stafford will throw him the ball like crazy. Tyler Lockett will get a ton of targets as well, as he is pretty much the only member of the passing game that, it has any kind of familiarity with Russell Wilson and has been extremely successful. Ertz always has good games against Washington. I talked about that a couple weeks ago. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. The guy had like 13 catches in a game against Washington. Always gets heavily targeted against them. D.D. Westbrook, I just explained. I think that they're going to have to keep up, and I think Nick Foles is going to target the shit out of D.D. Westbrook, and the Bills' defense is going up against the Jets, who I'm not thrilled with their passing defense, and I think they'll focus on. Or I'm not thrilled with their passing game, so I think it'll be a good matchup for Buffalo because that's pretty much what they do, and that'll allow them to focus all their attention on Le'Veon Bell.
Yep, I agree.
All right.
So now, guys. Yeah, go ahead,
I was gonna say you want to go through some. We froze again. Oh, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
All right. Yeah. So you want to go through some good cheap tournament plays?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll start with FanDuel because I just brought that up. For me, in tournaments this week, I try to go for lower owned guys. Especially at quarterback. So one of the lower owned guys for me that I think is not going to be very, very owned this week is Phillip Rivers. I think Phillip Rivers in FanDuel has a good shot of, basically what you're looking for to win a tournament is 4 times the amount of points to money ratio. So basically for, Phillip Rivers, you need him to get you about 28 to 30 fantasy points to, hit that 4x number. I think Phillip Rivers has a good chance of doing that against Indy this week. I think Indy is going to stop the Chargers' run game, and I think Phillip Rivers is going to throw a lot, which is why I have Austin Eckler in my lineup because I think he will be the back that's used to do that. So I think Phillip Rivers could have a very big game, and I think he might be 2-3% owned. I don't think he's going to be owned really at all. Other guys that I think will be, cheaper and low owned, Darius Geis. We heard about the Eagles, we heard about Darius Geis being the starter there and Adrian Peterson maybe being a healthy scratch. If that is the case, Darius Geis could see upwards of 20 carries in this game. And like I said, touchdowns are king. And you never know. With Darius Geis' speed, he does have, breakaway speed. The dude is a rhino in the open field to just run you right over. And you never know. He could break one for a long touchdown. That's a play that I don't think a lot of people are going to make. But at 5,900 on FanDuel, that is a cheap running back option that I would not mind taking a dart throw on. Another cheap running back that I like this week is Peyton Barber. At home, I think he's a running back that I don't think a lot of people are going to play, but at home, he could score a touchdown in this game and get, upwards of, 15 to 18 touches, be the main guy there. So, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on Barber. So I'll let you give a couple of your guys, Kev.
Yeah, quarterback-wise, I think we touched on a couple even in our lineups. I think Stafford. I think a lot of people are going to have Stafford in their lineups, but I do think Andy Dalton is a good one. I don't know how many people are going to go out there throwing Andy Dalton out there. So, I do think Andy Dalton is a good one. So those couple quarterbacks were pretty good. And they're if I'm looking at it correctly, I think they're like in the bottom 5 of starters. You got Stafford, Dalton, Foles, Mariota, Manning, Case Keenum as the bottom 6 guys. So, as far as starting quarterbacks, those are the bottom 6 starting quarterbacks. So, to me, Stafford, Dalton, even Nick Foles, I mean, that's probably one that's not going to be out there that much. And they may have to throw a lot to keep up with this team. So you could see Nick Foles have one of those games where he throws for 300 yards, just trying to catch up with Kansas City. As far as running backs go, Matt Breda is another one. We talked about him being the starter. I think both of these guys could be very relevant tomorrow. I have Tevin Coleman in my lineup, as you just heard, but Breda is, I think, what, $900 cheaper, $900 cheaper, and he's technically supposedly the starter, and this Tampa Bay defense is not going to be very good at all. Another two that I wouldn't mind taking a shot on. One of them is Chris Thompson. He is 5,100. I think that the Eagles are going to jump out on the Redskins, and Chris Thompson could see a lot of work coming out of the backfield in the passing game. And if for $5,100, I think that's a good chance, good shot to take. Um, and if you really want to be risky, Devin Singletary is 5,300, going up against the Jets. That's a committee there. I think all three of those backs are going to see some workload, but Devin Singletary to me looks really good. And, for $5,300, if you want to take a shot on a guy who probably isn't being used too much by other teams, that would probably be a good one to take.
Yeah, definitely. I like those. I like those calls. So another strategy that I will tell you guys is look for the high-priced wide receiver that nobody is playing, especially if you're playing tournaments, and hardly anybody is going to be playing Julio. Julio people see the Minnesota Vikings and are scared of that matchup. That to me, Julio is a guy that it doesn't matter who the matchup is. You know what I mean? It could be anyone. I don't care. I don't care who the corner is. Julio can beat any corner in football, and Julio is one of the best corners in football. So, it's not a matchup that people are going to try to attack, but I would recommend putting Julio in your tournament lineups because I don't think he's going to be highly owned, and this could be a smash spot for him. He could get in, how Julio is. Julio can have one of those games where he goes for 150 and 2 touchdowns. Now, I'm not calling that, but, he's going to be a very low-owned player that you could throw in your lineup, and he has that capability. So, definitely in your tournament lineups, make sure you're throwing in a little bit of Julio.
Tyreek Hill could be another one of those guys too.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill.
Hill's up there, and he's got that matchup against Jalen Ramsey, so there's not going to be a lot of people using Tyreek Hill in that game.
Exactly. Another guy that I really, really like in my tournament lineups this week is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is going up against the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers, a slot corner. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but is not a very good cover corner. And Cooper Kupp, from all indications coming out of camp, has looked like the Cooper Kupp of old and even a little bit quicker. And Cooper Kupp is not going to be highly owned this week because people are scared of that injury. They're going to want to see him do it first. And that is the best time to get a player like Cooper Kupp into your lineup because, he's going to be very low owned and he could smash this week. Cooper Kupp could have, a 2-touchdown game against Carolina, and it would not surprise me in the least, at all. Dante Pettis is the same way. Dante Pettis is a guy that I don't think a lot of people are going to be playing this week because all of the stuff they heard from coming out of camp. He's had a groin injury that's been bothering him a little bit. So I think people are going to be like, no, I'm not doing it. But Dante Pettis has one of the best matchups in fantasy football this week, and I think he could be a guy that definitely smashes for your fantasy, your DFS lineup, in tournament play. And I will give you guys one more guy deeper down in the pool, and that is John Brown. The Jets have just not been a very good pass defense, and John Brown, with the arm talent of Josh Allen, could be somebody that is going to be super low owned. Not a lot of people are going to play him, and he could have a 60-yard catch for a touchdown, and that's going to make you super happy. So John Brown, definitely a guy that in your tournament lineups I like this week.
Yeah, John Brown was one of mine that I was going to throw out there too. Same reason. The Jets not a very good passing defense last year, and this is FanDuel we're doing, and that is the touchdown league. And John Brown is could be good for a 60-yard bomb from Josh Allen. Um, so keep that in mind. Another one I like is Deshaun Jackson. We've basically been talking about the Philly matchup and how it's, I just think that Philly's gonna run roughshod on Washington, and Deshaun Jackson's a guy that could see similar like a nice 60-yard touchdown in that game. If you want somebody on the lower end as well, um, probably somebody that's not being played very much at all. Devontae Parker. Ryan Fitzpatrick is known to just chuck that ball up. So if he's going to go out there and kind of play the way he did in Tampa last year, the way he played when he was with the Jets, and just kind of go out there and try to do that Fitz magic stuff. Devontae Parker, he's always good for one game where he could get you a deep touchdown. So in this one, it's completely unexpected against a Ravens defense, but if you want to take a shot, that's a good one to take. He's only $5,300.
Definitely. All right. Tight ends. So for me, in tournaments this week, I would try to go for the more expensive tight ends. I don't know if I'm going to be taking too many chances on some of the lower end guys. The really only lower end guy that I think I would, even attempt is TJ Hawkinson, just because I think he's going to be super low owned, and the Arizona Cardinals are going to have a really tough time stopping him if Stafford decides that he wants to throw the ball that way. And he looked for him a lot the other day in the preseason, and he had some separation, boy. He was wide open on a lot of those throws. So for me, a guy that, going to be lower owned, has the possibility of, getting in the box, like we said, touchdown or king on FanDuel. I definitely think he has a chance for a touchdown. And Will Dissly is another guy that, was looked at a lot in the red zone last year. He only played, I think it was the first 3 games of the season, but he had 2 touchdowns in those first 3 games. So, definitely a guy that can get in the box against a poor Cincinnati Bengals defense. And then for the higher owned guys, I think Travis Kelce's probably not going to be that high owned because of the matchup, so I wouldn't mind him throwing him into the lineup. Zach Ertz is probably going to be a little more owned along with Kittle. So those are guys that I'm going to try to avoid. But O.J. Howard is probably my second favorite tight end of the week, especially on FanDuel and DraftKings. I just think I think he's in a smash spot. I think he could really have a big game. People are so on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin that they're forgetting about O.J. Howard, and he could be really low owned and have a good game.
Yeah, out of those top 5, looking at it now, Kelce probably is the one that I would pick in a tournament, just because the other 4, Kittle, Ertz, Howard, Ingram, all have pretty favorable matchups. So Kelce's probably the one out of those 4 that probably will be owned the least, and we know he's probably he's the best tight end in football. So that's not a bad shot to take. I was right on with you with the TJ Hawkinson one. In FanDuel, TJ Hawkinson is going for $4,900. That is extremely cheap compared to $7,300 for Kittle, $7,100. So it just opens you up with $2,300. And Hawkinson, if he gets targeted the way he did in that preseason game, it could be very good. Will Dissly was another one. We saw what he did in the red zone last year with Russell Wilson, and he's going to be extremely cheap. And if you want a mediocre guy to play, Delaney Walker is another one, because I just think he's going to be Mariota's guy over the middle of the field. And, I just don't see the Tennessee's offense being very good, and they are going to have to rely on Delaney Walker a lot. And I could see Delaney Walker getting a touchdown in this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I like Delaney this week. So, let's go to DraftKings. DraftKings, I'll go real quick with the quarterbacks. There's really only 2 DraftKings lower-owned quarterbacks that I like this week. Andy Dalton, obviously, because I told you guys about him earlier. And Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo will be owned in tournaments, but I don't think it's going to be more than 8%. I think it's probably going to be anywhere from 8 to 9%. I don't really see any of the quarterbacks being much more over the double digits than any other guy. There's a lot of spread matchups this week that, some high scoring games, some medium scoring games. So I don't really see anybody being like a smash that you're going to see, 15, 20% this week. So, but Jimmy Garoppolo could be a guy that gets the bonus, which is 300 yards on DraftKings. And, just he could have a big game against Tampa. We saw some of the games that people were putting up against Tampa last year, and it was big games being put up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, Jimmy is in a spot to do something big. Is there any quarterbacks you like, Kev?
Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is $100 less than Jimmy Garoppolo, and Philly matchup. We talked about that Philly matchup, and to me, Carson Wentz is a great matchup this week. He always seems to do well against the Redskins. If you think about some of his like more memorable plays, it was the one where he got out of the sack, runs away, the one where he kind of dips away from everybody, floats it down to Nelson Aguilar. These are all plays he did against Redskins. He just has, he just has good games against them. So Carson Wentz for $5,700 is one that I like. If you want to take another shot on one, is Josh Allen. We saw what Josh Allen did with the Redskins, or I'm sorry, with the rushing last year, and he goes up against the Jets. So this is a game where he also could probably throw, for a good, 250 yards and probably run for another 50, 60 yards. So Josh Allen isn't a bad shot to take for a lower price.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So for the running backs, on DraftKings, they have Nick Chubb at $6,400. That might be the lowest you're going to see Nick Chubb on DraftKings all year long. So I would definitely try to get him into some lineups this week. I think that, like I've been saying, when Freddie Kitchen gets a lead, which I definitely think this team could have, they pound the rock. So, Nick Chubb could definitely be a guy that sees, 25 touches in this game. And if he does, you're going to want to have him in some lineups, definitely. I think a guy that people are really, really going to stay away from, which I think is a mistake, is Damian Williams. I think people see the matchup, they see the McCoy factor, and they think, let me just stay completely away from Damian Williams. I think Damian Williams could catch, 6, 7 balls in this game easily, and get you 40, 50 yards and a touchdown, along with, 10 to 12 carries easily without a question in this game. And I think, people are just a little too scared of that matchup and what LaShawn McCoy brings. Two other guys lower owned that I like, again, Darius Geis is only 4,400. A guy I've already said I think is going to, especially if Adrian Peterson, keep your ears open, because if Adrian Peterson isn't inactive, I'm definitely getting him into a lot more of my FanDuel and DraftKings lineups, because like I said, he could have a good game. I don't think he's gonna have an amazing game, but for the price that he's at, he's well underpriced. You really only need him at 4,400. You need him to get you, 16 fantasy points to smash for you. You know what I mean? You want 4x. So he could definitely get you 4x at 4,400. And then the last guy that is really probably going to be almost not owned at all, that I would definitely throw in just because he's so cheap, is Justice Hill. If it turns out that the Dolphins do give up 25, 30 points and can't keep up with the Ravens, you're going to want to have Hill, because they're not going to continue to pound the rock with Mark Ingram. He's their number one running back. They are going to put Hill in to get some work, to see, what he does with some work. And, he's only 3,600. 3,600, he really only needs to get you, 14 fantasy points. And if the dude catches 3 balls for, even 40 yards, 30 yards, has a big play and a touchdown, he's basically getting you that. You know what I mean? So a guy that, just is very cheap and, could definitely get you 4x without any problem, at his price.
Yeah, I was right with you on the Justice Hill one. For $3,600, I do think he's a passing down back, especially after they cut Kenneth Dixon the other like a week ago. I think that just opened the door for Justice Hill because the other two running backs that are really heavily on their team are Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. We know Mark Ingram can catch the ball, but Justice Hill is way more of a fluent pass catcher out of the backfield. So on passing downs, I could definitely see Hill working in a lot more. In DraftKings, I just mentioned Chris Thompson. Chris Thompson in DraftKings to me is really good because, like I said, this could be a game where Washington has to throw the ball a lot, and Chris Thompson, when he's on the field, is just very, very, very productive. Um, and another guy that I like, kind of in the cheaper section or maybe in the mid-range section, is he's a little cheaper, but Kenyon Drake. We just heard Kenyon Drake is going to get a lot of touches. It's a tough matchup against Baltimore, but for $4,700, if this is the key guy in their and they're going to use him kind of as a maybe a guy where he gets 20 to 25 touches, that could be really good for Kenyon Drake for a $4,700 price.
Definitely, they have him priced behind Rashad Penny and Daryl Henderson Jr. Behind Deion Lewis. So definitely could be in a smash spot. Wide receiver wise, for me in DraftKings wide receiver wise, I just look for guys that I think are going to get a whole lot of targets, and you know what I mean. D.D. Westbrook is great. You know what I mean. Like Kev said earlier, if at 4,800, I think he's just going to be crazy targeted. There's a couple other guys that I definitely if the Rams go over to Carolina and smash, I think Cam is going to have to throw the ball a lot. So Curtis Samuel at 4,200 is another guy I like. Adam Humphries, like I said, Cleveland. I think Cleveland can go in there, go home and just completely smash the Tennessee Titans. So Adam Humphries is a guy that I think could catch 5, 6, 7, 8 balls in that game. Just being heavily targeted in that game. See, guys like that, the one surprise guy that I am going to give you guys that I think really should be started in almost every DraftKings tournament every tournament that I'm going to be in, I'm probably going to throw him in, is Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is $4,000 going up against a Tampa Bay defense that is just atrocious, that I don't think is going to be any better than they were last year. They have probably some of the worst cover corners in football, and we know how explosive Deebo can be on the field. Deebo, I think, is going to get targets. I think Chris Godwin is getting the veteran treatment. I think he's getting the, starting tag because he's the vet on that team, and, they just feel better about having him out there first. But if Deebo Samuel gets on that field, catches a couple of balls, looks good, in the open field, and possibly gets a long touchdown, is going to be a guy that, his price is going to rise up real quick. And, I want him, going against Tampa Bay at 4,000.
All right, so a guy that I like, is very cheap, very similar. When DraftKings is PPR, and when you're trying to find good DraftKings players, you want guys that are going to be, like Steve said, targeted heavily, catch a lot of balls for a cheap price. One of them that I do like, actually, I'll just say simultaneously, this could be, one or two of these guys. Correction, it could be either one of these guys. Zay Jones and Cole Beasley. Both of those guys are the starters on Buffalo. Zay Jones is 3,700, Cole Beasley 36. I would lean towards Beasley because I think they bought him here for a reason. And from what we're hearing, they've been working on Josh Allen, trying to get the ball out of his hands a little faster, probably trying to reduce a little bit of the rushing that he was doing. So I think Cole Beasley could see a good, 8 targets tomorrow in tomorrow's game. And for a $3,600 price, I think that's a very good price. I'm right there with you on Deebo Samuel for 4,000. Jamison Crowder is another one. I know the Buffalo defense is very good, but Jamison Crowder for 4,100. We've been hearing good rapport between him and Sam Darnold. You do have Le'Veon Bell to worry about out of the backfield there, but I think Jamison Crowder could see similar 7-8 targets in that game, and if he catches 6 of them for 70 yards, maybe he gets in the end zone. I think that could be a good price.
Definitely. So I have one more wide receiver I forgot to mention, Rashard Higgins, for the Cleveland
That's
Browns. Yeah,
I was gonna say he's a good one. I was looking for him more in FanDuel.
yeah.
I guess I should have probably brought him up because I think Higgins could be a touchdown guy,
Mm-hmm.
but Higgins is going to be really cheap considering all the
Yeah,
weapons they have. In
exactly.
DraftKings, he's only $3,200.
Exactly. $3,200 going up against the Tennessee Titans. If he catches 4 or 5 balls for 80 yards and a touchdown, he's going to smash 3,200. And he could definitely score a touchdown. He's a big body that Baker's definitely going to look for in the red zone. So, he could smash that price. Um, Going to the tight end position, there is yeah.
Really quick. Let me throw out another wide receiver that I like. That I would take a shot on too is Ted Ginn Jr. To me, Ted Ginn Jr. He's the starter outside. It is not Traquan Smith. They have Ted Ginn Jr. listed on their depth chart as the receiver on the outside, and we know he's capable of a deep ball at any given time. And
Hold
to
up, Kev.
me,
He's not in the main
oh
slate
my
though.
God, Antonio Brown has agreed to terms with the Patriots.
Oh wow.
Oh my God! Breaking news:
Agreed to
Antonio
terms with the
Brown, according
Patriots.
to Adam Schefter, Antonio Brown has just agreed to terms with the Patriots.
Dude, that's what he wanted the whole time. I
He
can't
wanted this
stand
the
this. He
whole
wanted
time.
this the
Oh
whole time.
my
He wanted to be.
God!
He's been saying for years that he would love to play for Bill Belichick. He orchestrated this whole thing to get on the Patriots. It doesn't surprise me at all. All right, back to FanDuel. What's it called? Ted Ginn is not on the main slate, Kev. My bad.
Yeah, I was going to say if you're including the game with the Monday night, Ted Ginn was a guy I was figuring. He's $4,200. I looked him up.
Yeah. So yeah, that's crazy news. All right.
That just threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
I was
it
like,
did. Yeah, that
I heard
definitely.
my fantasy life notification. Look down, and this is Antonio. That quick.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's crazy. I thought Bill
He
Belichick would be like, nah, but Belichick, man, he took Randy Moss in. He took. Yeah, we should have known that. As soon as we heard the release, we should have said, we should have suspected that would happen. But anyway, to the tight end position on DraftKings, we have Travis Kelce. Like I said, is going to be a lone guy that I want to get into my tournament lineups. Really, there's two other lower price guys. I'm not going to get into too many more tight ends, but there's two lower price guys that I think could have good games. Jack Doyle, I was talking about, and Darren Waller. I think both of these guys could be heavily targeted, especially now that Antonio Brown has left the Raiders. I think people will sleep on Waller in this scoring system over in FanDuel, PPR. Waller could be very good this week. He could be highly targeted and possibly catch a touchdown. So definitely a tight end that I'm going to be very interested in. And Jack Doyle, I've been saying it that
He's another Monday night guy too. Is Darren Waller?
Yeah, Darren Waller is Monday night. That's true. But Jack Doyle is. I love Jack Doyle, man. I think Jack Doyle is much better than Eric Ebron, and I don't think it's close. I think he is a better receiver, a better hands catcher of the football, just a better all-around player, period. Not as big a body as Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron is just much bigger in the red zone, which is why they like having him on the team to use him in the red zone. But Jack Doyle is a guy that I think is going to get heavily targeted tomorrow by Brissett. And if he catches 6, 7, 8 balls, you are going to be really happy that he is on your fantasy team.
Yep. So I'm going to stick with T.J. Hawkinson at 3,100. I think that's a great one. And another one is Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, we have heard a lot about Andrews being a good, kind of a good piece for Lamar Jackson there. He's only 3,000 going up against Miami. So I think Mark Andrews is a good play in tournaments.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And then the last guy is Will Dissly. I already said that. At 2,900, one of the lower priced tight ends, starting tight ends, because after that you're getting into Jonnu Smith and Ricky Seals-Jones. I feel like Dissly has been completely forgotten about in fantasy, and he could have a good game tomorrow against Cincy. So, a guy that I'm definitely interested in, and maybe you guys should think about getting him in there. DSTs, just real quick.
Yep.
We're not really going to get into DSTs on these DFS podcasts, we'll give you who we're playing in our 50-50 lineups. But DFs, DSTs are really just too hard to predict what is going to happen. So my recommendation would be either go for the very high price guys or the guys that are all the way at the bottom. You know what I mean? So either you feel like the Ravens are going to smash the Dolphins and they could score a touchdown, put the Ravens in your lineup. If you don't feel like there's a defense out there that is just going to smash and be awesome, then I would just say take the lowest price defense, because the lowest price defense, what they're going to do is they're going to open up lineup options to you that you didn't have before. I mean, you, instead of spending 3,800 on the Ravens, you could spend 2,000 on, I believe, who is it? The Bengals this week. You know what I mean? And the Bengals could get 2 or 3 sacks on Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a guy that has always been sacked in his career. I mean, he's been a heavily sacked quarterback. So the Bengals are not going to get you a donut. You know what I mean? They'll get you some kind of points. And if they get a lucky touchdown, a kick return for a touchdown or something like that, you spent 2,000 on them, and almost no one is going to have them.
Yeah. So that should pretty much wrap it up. Yeah, I'm not going to get into DSTs like that. Usually when I go DSTs, I kind of try and get the just look for the best matchup. For me, like I said, I went with Philly, I went with Baltimore in two of my lineups. So, and I went with Buffalo. Buffalo to me has a very good matchup. That would be another one that's actually just really cheap. It's $3,000, but usually, like I said, I just try to find the best matchup, and that's the team I ride with. So that pretty much wraps us up for today's podcast. Remember to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, player profiles, and you can subscribe to our VIP access. And until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace.